an intro.
I've said that so many times. Oh, by the way, we started, by the way.
Yeah.
I always say we need some music.
Yeah.
We need musical friends who can play us something and give us a jingle. And we're working on that. Don't worry.
At some point, we'll get a proper intro.
Yes, we would.
I mean, this is the intro. It's random banter, but that's the intro.
Okay, it worked.
Banter.
I think it worked.
Doesn't have any objective. We debate about intros every time we get to this point in the conversation.
Yep.
That's when we now decide that we need an intro.
You know, the thing is, when Damal and I are recording a video, we end up like we know the entire thing that we're gonna do, but then we don't know the intro. So where they were like, "You intro, no, you intro." What do I say?
All right, it's all right. But I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. Like I said, this is such an opportunity to bring you with your expertise and the whole essence of who you are to our tech.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Do talk more about Tech Chat.
Yeah. So Tech Chat is our platform for basically talking all things tech. Especially our focus really is providing valuable information to people who are looking to transition into tech. And this is a new aspect of it that we're doing, where we bring in we have an expert guest. Once every month, we'll bring you somebody who is really good at something they do and know what they're talking about to tell you something we don't know. And then we get to ask them questions. Right. That's what we're doing today, and we are excited to have no other than our friend of the last maybe 2 decades now.
Quite a long time.
It's been a minute since we've been friends.
I mean, it's longer than that with Somcho, though.
Yes, very long. Oh, I know, right? Oh my gosh.
So me and you were cool before. No. I thought I was the first.
Oh, I remember Emi Longa. I remember her.
Yeah.
Well, our guest today is our friend Emi. No, she's not Longa anymore.
Yes, she's not.
For me, for a very long time. 11 years now.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Emi is going to be our guest. We'll let her introduce herself.
Yes, Emi. I know you sent us an amazing bio, but we also want to hear just from your lips. Like, tell us who you are. And just everything that's
your journey,
just everything, right? So go for it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Like they said, my name is Emi, no longer Emi Longa, but Emi Adelakun. And, I've known Nnamdi and Stella for a very long time. So thank you for having me on your platform today. I have been in the tech industry for the last 14 years of my career. I've navigated different, career paths and different, roles in the tech space. But today I serve as a cloud strategy and sales specialist, helping my customers who happen to be in the financial services industry modernize their platforms and just grow their business and attain their goals using cloud technology. So I work primarily with clients in the capital market space, and so that takes up the majority of my day. But when I'm not involved in tech, then I'm involved in business and some other activities outside of that. I'm not sure if that's enough of an intro, but let me know if there's something that I didn't mention that you'd like for me to share.
Sure. Tell us maybe a little bit something personal about you.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm married. I have 2 wonderful kids, a boy and a girl. The boy is 7. Yeah, and the girl is 4. But aside that, actually, outside of tech or business or whatever, I happen to be someone who enjoys being creative. So I'm very, I would say I'm good. I say that with all humility, with my hands, right? So building stuff, creating stuff, that's my thing. And so I enjoy a lot of photography. Portrait photography specifically. At some point I actually did that commercially, but now I have so much on my plate that I don't do that anymore. I just do that for family and selected friends. So that's something personal about.
We need to be in that selected friends list.
To get the invite.
Very important.
We just
be in that list because I'm creative, but sometimes I feel like with my hands, I can write, but not creative like that.
Please, you are one of the most creative people I know.
Oh my goodness. But thank you so much for sharing your journey, right? Let's get the question started, right? My first question to you is, what did you study in the university?
Okay. So my undergrad was information and communication engineering, right? So it was, I mean, it was tech, it was engineering, but it wasn't even exactly related to what I do today. So it was more so like, just the real like hardcore engineering. Like we took engineering classes for our entire time there. And when we graduated, like we got into the program thinking it was information and communication technology. And we were going to learn about programming and all of this fancy tech stuff, but it was hardcore engineering. So I'm talking about power and, electricity, all of that stuff. So that's what it was. So I did that for 5 years. And then I worked for a very short period of time in IT. So I think that's how I managed to end up in IT, because I worked for a telecommunications company, just because naturally as an information and communications engineer, it would make sense for me to go there. But I ended up being put in the IT team. So like that just basically scrapped the engineering part of my my degree, and then I ended up in the IT space. But after that, I think I did that for a while, and I just knew that long term, I didn't want to stay like core technical. I didn't really want to be like into all of that, like whether it was even coding or like hardware. So I just knew I didn't want to do that, and so I wanted to be more in the management and business space of technology. And so I left for my master's degree in engineering management. So it was a really great program for me, because it was, the way that I would describe it was sort of like a packaged MBA for technical professionals. So that was at Duke University. And so we took a lot of classes that were more project, business, management, inclined, law, things like that. But not focusing on the technical. So I loved that a lot, because it wasn't like a master's in engineering where it was going to be super technical, but it wasn't like this deep MBA, because I don't think I had enough of that work experience to like, get the best out of an MBA. So it was a really great mix for that program for me.
Thank you for saying that, because I wanted to make the connection between, what you studied and what you're doing now. And I'm glad you talked about the fact that you went into IT and they decided that, well, I didn't want to do core tech or core programming. And they talk about the business management part of tech, which a lot of people are not also aware of, because oftentimes we just think it's, I have to be a computer science major, or I have to learn how to code. So you just give us like a really quick overview of opportunities that are in tech and how sometimes when you study is not what you end up doing. So thank you for that.
I think it's never what you end up doing. The way the world is now, it's you.
Right.
The opportunities available to you have a part to play as well.
That's true.
And where your career goes. So for anybody listening, don't be too married to what you studied. Just explore. You might just end up enjoying where you find yourself.
Right.
So don't be closed-minded to it. But maybe talk about tech sales itself, for somebody
so
who is for somebody who's trying to figure, okay, this sounds like an exciting thing to do.
I know, right?
What does it really mean, right? You kind of started talking about it, but for somebody clueless, what does it mean? What exactly is it they'll be doing on a daily basis? So,
I will share a little, but feel free to like stop me if I start getting very if I start geeking out about tech sales, stop me, interrupt me, whatever. But tech sales, I think, is pretty much what it is you're selling technology. It's as simple as that. That's just what it boils down to. But, what I've realized in my time in this role is that it's more than just thinking, oh, I'm just going there to sell technology, right? And so that's why, when I introduce my role to people, I help them understand that I'm a cloud strategy and sales specialist. And that's because, so when it comes to tech sales, it's really broad. You could sell any, products within the, tech space. And these days, especially with the way that technology is changing, the way that sales operates is also changing, right? So traditionally, selling tech was, I would use the term build, right? So it's a term we use in tech. It was a build thing. So that meant that you had like maybe an entire year, or depending on like the renewal cycle of your clients. So you had that entire time to prepare for the sale. You made the sale and you just walked away, and it's like, hooray, till we meet again type of thing. But with the way technology has evolved now, and like, you know, when you sell cloud, like I do, it's not a build engagement anymore. It's more of a consumption motion, which means that you cannot take your hands off of it, because at any point in time, your client could decide to just turn everything off, right?
Mhm.
So unlike when you sell tech, like maybe you're selling hardware or you're selling software, you're selling licenses or stuff like that. Once you buy the licenses, you're in, right? So
Right.
right at the beginning of the year, that's it, and everybody goes home, and then you figure it out, right, from that point. But when you sell cloud, you know, it's consumption driven, and that's really the I would say the key point about cloud is people get to pay for just what they use. So you could go to a client today and sell something that's churning in revenue of like $1 million a month, and then something happens somewhere with that customer that you don't know about because you're not close to them and you're not helping them with their actual strategy. And they decide, oh, maybe we don't need this anymore, and they turn it off, and so you don't know, and then you wake up one day and you realize you're like $1 million short on your revenue. So yeah, so it makes a little different. So if you're going to get into tech sales, you kind of want to be aware of what you're going to be selling exactly, so you know what kind of skills are required for what you're doing. However, whether you end up selling something that's, you know, like a build type of product or something that's consumption based, I would say for anybody getting into the tech sales space, there are 3 things that you most likely want to know, at least 2 of them, right? So you want to at least be good in 2 of them. One thing my manager would say is that the unicorn, you know, sales leader is one who has technical knowledge of the technology specifically that you're selling. One who actually has sales experience, right? You've been in the field and you've sold, whether or not it was technology or you were selling deep freezers or whatever. You have sold and you know the motions for sale. And thirdly, the domain knowledge, right? So for anybody who's going to get into tech sales, these 3 areas make you a prime candidate for any employer. I think that it's important because many times people would count themselves out because they're missing one part of it. And usually maybe it's the tech part. So they're like, well, I don't have any technology background, so I can't fit into tech sales. But that's not true, because chances are you have the domain knowledge and you already have sold something. So for example, maybe someone who's worked in insurance their entire life, all they've known is insurance. They've sold insurance their entire life. And they're thinking, okay, well, I can't possibly cross over into tech or cross over into tech sales because I don't have the tech sales background. But they have no idea that they're literally who a tech company wants. Why? Because you understand the insurance space. You know that domain. You know what the policies are like. You know how the customers think. You know what the insurance companies need to keep their lights on. And then finally, you've actually sold insurance. So you already have 2 of those 3, pieces of that triangle that make for the perfect sales leader. You just don't know it. And thankfully, technology is accessible today. And thankful to, people like you all who provide these trainings, right? Like, you don't have to go to traditional college to know technology. Pick an area of technology you want to be good at and just focus on it. The beauty of it is once you know, part of it, you can be fluid. You can move into something else and just like keep learning and going, because new products are being developed anyway. So you just pick a portion of it, get trained, get certified, or whatever the case may be, get a mentor, and get into the job markets. You are more than ready.
I love the tech part of it, the sales part of it, and then the domain part of it. Very, very, I mean, that's why when people say they want to get into tech, for example, sometimes they say they don't have any experience, but you talk about domain. I say, well, you want to get into tech, there's the health tech, there's the edu tech, there's the fintech. Actually, if you already work in that space, you already have like literally domain, like I said, knowledge that makes you stand out from any other person's applying for the same job. Wow, that's been super, super helpful.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway for me is showing how you don't even need to make that drastic change.
Exactly.
When you're looking to get into tech, because you already have most people already have something. You already have the foundations. You already I think the biggest mental block for most people has always been, well, I'm not good with computers. I haven't done this before. You don't want to do, and doing this or that.
How can I sell tech? What's if I don't understand the tech? Then how do you expect me to sell it?
Yeah, but how many people even know this is an option for them, right?
People don't know.
So even people who go through our programs who maybe get the technical skills, maybe as a database administrator, for example, their whole focus is I want to go work in and do that thing, right? When all they've just done is build one of the core skills Emi just mentioned.
Yeah.
That could, well, I can take my selling cars and my database administration, and suddenly I'll be a prime candidate for a role with a company who is looking for somebody who understands SQL and knows how to talk to people.
Like this actually like is very close to home, and I like that you guys touched on that, because like you said, many times people feel more daunted about getting in than they should, just because it's just very vague and they don't know. But like you mentioned, somebody maybe, you know, gets trained in SQL, right? And they become like a database administrator or something, and I don't know what they may have been doing before, but like you said, you are not required to like uproot your entire life and become this whole new person. You can literally just take the experiences that you have before, and then, you know, maybe there's one more thing that you need to add to that, and then you're a prime candidate. So my job as selling cloud, I sell core cloud, right? So when I, you know, say core, I'm talking about infrastructure, right? Because if the customer is going to load their applications or even their data in the cloud, you know, infrastructure has to be in place, right? So that's when we're talking about getting their landing zone ready, getting all the policies in place and governance and stuff like that, right? But when I do that kind of work, it makes it possible for my counterpart, who is a data and AI sales leader, to come in and do their job. Now, once I'm done with like getting their landing zone, all of that stuff, getting their servers good and ready, all of the VMs, you know, stood up, you know, I don't have to be like in there like, okay, so we have this amount of data on-prem and our SQL environment, and with I'm just like, hold that thought. I'm gonna grab that AI guy, right? Who's gonna get in there and figure this out with you all, right? So so for someone who then has like that's maybe sales experience, even if like you said you were selling cars or selling insurance or whatever it is you were selling, you get in there, you have that SQL background and training, it means you can actually, you know, listen in and understand what's been said. You know, one of the things people don't quite understand about tech sales is that you're not the engineer. Because many times people will have a title that says sales engineer, and it's kind of daunting because when you see the job description, it's scary because it's like, oh, you have to be the person who really knows, like, okay, what's the specs for the server going to be and all of that. I tell you, I don't have to know any of that. All I need to know is what's your business? What do you guys do? Okay, what's important to you guys? Okay, how can we possibly solve this with technology? Well, you guys are spending X amount on-prem today because you have all of these servers in a data center and you're not using it at that full capacity. If you moved this workload to the cloud, you'd probably be using way less of the capacity than what you're using, and you'd save money. You'd be able to invest money in other parts of your business. And the customer is like, wow, that sounds great. Can you help me then assess my workload right now and see, you know, okay, how I can possibly save that? And that's why I say, hold that thoughts. I'm going to get an architect to help you, because I don't have to get into all of that. Like, so the server size and the 10 cores and 50 cores, people get scared because of that, but you don't have to even do that. You just need to be able to sit with them and think through what their problems are, think about what the solution can be, and pull in the right people who can help them figure it out.
Because I was about to ask what your day-to-day looks like. I think you touched on that a little bit.
Well, I was about to get excited hearing 20 calls, and that part was it's something usually for me. Before you ask your question, I wanted to go back to when you build these relationships with the clients. You know, you talked about it. You do it, and then they can end it at any time because of the change in their situation.
Right.
So is it on you to, do you take them on as an account, or once you close a sale, that's it, you're done, and your employer now becomes they become a client of yours? How does that work? Like, where does your role end with when you initiate a relationship?
I love that question. Where does your job end? Because you almost become, you know, everything that this customer needs, right? So like I mentioned earlier, you can sell tech in two ways. You can sell it build. That's that you make that sale at the beginning of the year, you close shop, and that's it. Or sometimes, you know, with the build stuff, it's actually great because sometimes you can work in 3-year contracts, sometimes 5-year contracts. So that means that once you close that sale, you're not really having to work on it until the next, you know, 5 years have rolled by. But for me, I sell cloud, like I said, it's consumption based. So my job never ends with a customer. So I'm going to help them think through how they get to the cloud. I'm going to help them think through how the cloud is going to be beneficial for them. I'm going to help them think through how they can integrate more of what they have on premises today with the cloud. I'm going to have to help them think through how to get more from their on-premises. Because sometimes they're like, oh, we just want to get this, 500 servers because, our, contract in this colocation is expiring. And that's an entry point, right? Awesome. We'll help you move 500 servers. Then you're staying in that relationship to find out more like, okay, so what applications are you all using on premises today? Oh, we're using this application, blah, 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 and this, that, it's running on this. Well, how about we think about like moving this thing on to the cloud for you all, like you'd save even more. So that relationship, it never ends. And so that's why you want to keep that relationship, because chances are, if there are conversations going up with leadership that will jeopardize that sale that you've made, you would know, because your point of contact will let you know, like, we're having concerns about this thing that we've moved to the cloud. We're thinking of shutting it down. And then you get a chance to jump in ahead of that and find out, okay, hold on. What's the issue here? And many times it's either the people, it's the processes, and very rarely it's the product itself, right? So sometimes you just need to help them think through their processes. Like, okay, how are you doing things today? Because what we realize is many times people come to the cloud with the same mindset of how they run things on premises. So they're not really, educated on how to, manage their economies on the cloud and, their spend and all of that. So then you can get ahead of that and figure out their processes with them. If there are people who need trainings, you train them, like, so that they're able to do it. And that way you save yourself, oh boy. Oh, okay. You hear me? Because I think, oh, perfect. Because my screen just like went off. Okay. It's still doing that. But anyway, hopefully
we can see and hear you. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so that way you save yourself the pain of losing like $12 million over a year, because what's your entire quota? As a salesperson, you're carrying a quota. You're paid on what you make for the company. So you want to stay on that. Like, I make sure you know every single move the customer is thinking about.
You're giving me inspiration for more questions, but I love the relationship building, like you just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Because when we had the traditional salesperson, when someone comes to sell anything to you, you're like, I don't want to buy what you sell.
People don't want to be
right.
I didn't want to hear you, see you.
It's like they don't care about you. They just want you to buy their stuff. They don't,
No, but this is very important, because you're giving them value. You're saving them money.
Yeah.
You're helping them be more efficient, literally helping them be more agile, right? You're building that relationship, but then when you start that relationship, there are more ways for you to help them. So that, I think that's one of the major competencies, of course, of really, even being in sales is people, you gotta like people.
You have to know how to just work with people. You have to be a people person at some level.
I had a question, I just slipped my mind now. The quota part of it, right? Because that's people sometimes feel a little bit nervous about, oh my god, what if I don't meet my quota? And all of that, like, how are you set up for success? How are you set up for success in your job to be able to meet your quota?
Okay. So for me, this is like, I had to like jump in and learn it, because I hadn't done sales before I did sales, right? I hadn't done a sales job before I got the job, but I'm like, okay. So that was a little daunting, but you know what I figured out when I got in there, and I'm just glad that you guys are doing this, because I think that there is not enough of, I would say people like us in the tech space, in the tech sales space specifically. And I think a lot of it is misinformation, because people just have that fear, like, okay, if I don't meet my quota, my family is going to be hungry. And so they don't want to do it. And, what I realized when I got into tech sales, I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, this is where it's really happening, and, but I didn't know that, because on the outside, you're just thinking, oh, if I don't meet my quota, I'm going to be fired. I'm not going to be able to eat or whatever. But so you have a responsibility to properly understand how you're getting comp. Okay. Comp is paid, right? So you have a responsibility to understand how you're getting paid. The ideal tech sales role is going to have a healthy split between your base pay and your commission pay. So in my role, I get a base pay and then I get a commission.
Okay.
Many people split it any kind of way, but you have to figure out like, a split that works for you. So basically what your pay is going to be based on like you meeting up like 100% of your target.
Okay.
So for example, if a person had a regular job that was not sales oriented and it was just, any, tech job whatsoever, chances are they have an understanding of what their pay is. Like you get your 100% as your base, or maybe you get like, I don't know, 90% of it as, your base, and then you get 10% as bonus or whatever. A healthy tech sales job is going to split that package properly for you so that even if you don't meet your quota, you're not left out, hanging to dry, right?
Right.
Because when you think about it, like the tech space was highly impacted during the pandemic. Some people for good, some people for bad, especially post-pandemic, right? So, if you took a tech sales job that does not create that package properly, then you might be left, holding on to the short end of the stick. So many jobs will split your pay to where it's like maybe 70% base, 30%, is your commission, or, 60%, 40. So they'll let you know, like, is it a 70, 30, 60, 40, 50, 50, like, it really depends. Right. But you don't want to take a job where they like put all of like the majority of your pay on the back. That's painful.
Right.
A quota, then but with like obviously I can't really share what my split is like, but like I said, it's a healthy enough split to where even if you miss your targets, you'll still walk home with about the same amount that anybody else who wasn't doing sales is walking home with. Truly speaking. Right. They work it that way such that maybe you're short by like, I don't know, maybe like 20 grand, right? But when you think about what someone else is earning, more than likely as a salesperson, you're going to be earning less than anyone else doing a role in any other org at your same level. Because most companies will pay you based on level. So like if you look at yourself and you look at someone else who's at like the same level, but they're like doing a role that's not sales, they might be earning maybe about 30-ish or so more than what you are on the base level.
Okay.
But the commission is where it really matters for a salesperson. Why? Because not only do you get to potentially earn the entirety of your commission, many companies have what they call accelerators, right? Which means that if you hit your targets and you cross over that, target of 100% by like 1%, your commission starts multiplying. So companies, so there are companies that have like a 10x multiplier. Some companies have like a 5x multiplier. So it's like your earning potential is pretty much like
unlimited.
Right. So it makes you hustle because you're like, okay,
I know, right?
Someone else who does sales in another company, and I'm like, do you want to put a good word for me in with you? But like, they were saying that, I don't know if it was them or their colleague that walked home one year with like almost $1 million.
Wow.
Right. But this is a person whose base pay is not even up to 200,000.
Wow.
So do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you will still have a healthy base.
Yes.
But when you think about going home with $1 million versus your base,
that's enough incentive to get on the phone.
So it's, again, like I said, it depends on the company. It depends on the size of the company. It depends on how deep their pockets are. It just really depends on a lot. But you have to do that due diligence and figure out like what you want to earn. Because I find that with people who are in sales and like, they have a good year, some people might be, maybe trying to work like, 4 different jobs to make what you make in 1 year, right?
Good point.
And it's just because you blew your quota out of the water. Because maybe you start at the year and they give you like a quota of like, I don't know, $50 million. And then somehow in the middle of the year, you get a client who wants to onboard this workload that's going to be like, I don't know, $5 million each month.
Wow.
You understand? So it's like you can just go home. Obviously, you can't go home. You have to
I know,
stay
right?
on the
like I'm done.
You make sure they don't turn it off, but it's good for you because when you do the math, you come out looking really healthy at the end of the year. So I think it's a great role. It's just, high risk, high reward. And you just, decide if you have the appetite for that kind of risk.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Do you have questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask with respect to the clients, are you sourcing clients or are those being given to you? So it's your employer responsible for
that's a good question. Again, it'll depend on the company.
Okay.
It'll depend on the role. So some companies are newer and maybe they're just like new in the tech space. So they're really just trying to get their clientele built up.
Right.
You work with like a pretty established, company, they already have their client base, and then they just, pick a patch and hand that to you. So when I started in sales, I mean, I didn't have to get those clients. They already existed for the company, but they were not using our cloud yet. So in a sense, I was still having to hunt for that business. So in sales, they typically split people as either the hunters or the farmers. Very interesting. So if you're a hunter, it means that you're actually trying to get new clients. Like
this, you're a farmer, you're nurturing.
Exactly. You're trying to nurture what already exists and grow it and just increase, that relationship, right? So when I started out in sales, I was hired as a hunter. And so I got given like the accounts that were literally not doing anything. But the good thing about sales is that you're not comped on how much your clients make. You're simply comped on the percentage of what the company expects to get from them you're able to bring in. That's it. So it's not like, right. So even if a person has a portfolio where their quota is $500 million and you have a portfolio where your quota is 10 million, it doesn't matter. Like the target is the target. You are paid how much of the target, not how much the customer spends. So it's good for people to know. So you're not like worried about, they gave me this small, customers. No, it's based on the percentage of the quota that you meet. So I was a hunter. So I had to like really dig in there. And, many times it was because those accounts either were like, we're not doing cloud, we're old school. We wear that badge with great pride as old school, people were not going to the cloud, or they were already on the competitor's cloud. In which case you had to like find ways to convince them to use our own cloud. So I did that for about half a year, and I, surpassed my quota. And so I got moved into the farming section where I was given established accounts who already had relationships. They were already doing stuff on our cloud. And then I just had to help them continue to nurture that and find more, opportunities in there for us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I'm learning a lot.
We need hunters.
Farmers.
For our business. We need a lot of hunters. So what?
With Insta, right? Okay.
Maybe Emi come and train us to
hunt and farm.
I'm stuck with the hunter concept.
Okay. Well, my question will be, okay, so let's say someone is watching this and they're so intrigued like we are and they want to get into this space, right? Walk us through, I know you talked about the first job you had, you were how did that work for you? Like, how did you get even into tech sales? Okay.
So maybe I should actually start by even just giving a brief like walkthrough of my career in the tech space. So I've been, like I said, in the tech space for about 14 years, and the company I'm with now, I've been with them for about 11 years. Is it? Yeah, I think it's over 11. Okay. So I started out in the company in the tech, like in the core tech department org, which, like I said, I didn't want to be in. So I started out as an escalation engineer, right? So really working with our clients who already, had our products. And so as an escalation engineer, it's that something's broken and, someone needs to fix it. So I'm in there like parsing through code or, having to run scripts, all of that stuff. Yeah. Just the technical stuff. But I already knew, right? But from when I went into my master's, that was not my home and I was not trying to stay there. So I did that for a few years. And so what you'd find, like, with being an escalation engineer is that you don't get that chance to build relationships. So yes, you get to like put your hands in the tech, but it's very transactional. It's like get kiss in, kiss out. You're trying to get them through the door as quickly as possible. So, there's some skills you just can't learn because part of like, working in tech sales, there's some soft skills that you must have down, right? So after I did my time in that job and I realized like I needed to move, then I moved into a different role. In that role, I was a technical account manager. Same company, different org, different role. So now I was a technical account manager. So part of being a technical account manager meant that you were working with the customers to ensure that they are successful with the technology that they've already purchased from the company. So you're not selling, you're just being there to make sure that, what they've purchased from the company, they're actually using it, right? So I will explain how this whole thing ties, together, and why I really value my journey in the tech space. But so as a technical account manager, you're making sure the customers know what they're doing with the tech, that they're using what they've actually bought. Sometimes customers will buy a bunch of licenses and they don't even use it. What that means is that next year, whoever their sales rep is going to be short, because they're like, well, we don't need these much, licenses. We're going to buy just half, right? That's a problem. So as a technical account manager, you are aware of what your customer has in their portfolio, and then you just help them make the best use of it. And then part of that is you also try to, help them be proactive with that stuff, and not be just opening tickets each time something's broken. So you make sure that they have a plan for their IT environment. Okay, how many times are we going to do an assessment of your SQL environment? How many times are we going to do an assessment of your Active Directory, environment? All of that stuff. Just make sure that they use the technology and they're successful with it. Now, towards the end of my stay in that role, the role got redone into what we know today as the customer success account manager. And it really is a different term for almost the same thing, but as opposed to using that word technical account manager, customer success is more aligned, because many times when you hear someone is a technical account manager, you actually think that they will be technical enough to help you figure some stuff out, which isn't the case. But when you hear the term customer success account manager, it pretty much means that it's my role to ensure that these customers are successful with the technology they've purchased, right? So I did that as well for, a little bit. And I was, able to be, I think that year I was the top performer in the region, in the South region. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, do I want to keep being here and be this mighty fish?
I know, right?
To take myself and go be like a little shrimp in a big body of water elsewhere. So I had to make that decision, because those kinds of things are pivotal for your career. Okay, now you're being celebrated in the org as the highest performer in the region. So you want to leverage those kinds of moments. And that's when I realized, I want to see what's next for my career. And I was assessing a few things. And for me, I wanted to move into sales simply because I was also eyeing leadership positions in the tech world. And I did enough research to find that many people who eventually became CTOs or CEOs even, not only were they technical, they had to pass through the sales world for a little bit in their career. Why? Because if you can sell a portfolio and keep it healthy, you can likely keep a company afloat. Because that's what you're doing in sales. So many of the CEOs in the tech space have gone through the sales corridor. So they spent the early years of their career as programmers, as software engineers, then maybe they became program managers. But at some point, a lot of them passed through sales in one form or another. So that's when I realized, okay, I'm going to go in there. And the good thing with sales is there are different roles in there, depending on how deep you are, either in sales or technology. So I was going to go into the space as an account technology strategist, which means that it's sales, but it leans heavier on the technology aspect, as opposed to what I do now as a sales leader, which there's some technical, stuff there, but it leans more on your sales acumen. Okay. So I wanted to go in there as a technology strategist because honestly, I read the job description and it said that part of your duty is to be a virtual CTO.
Oh, so you're like,
I'm jumping in.
The stars are aligned.
I'm like, let's do it. So I went on and I interviewed for it, but I couldn't get an opening in my region, where I lived, and I didn't want to move. And I did a couple of those cycles. And the last one, they were going to make an offer and they're like, oh, are you going to move here? And I'm like, yeah, I can't. And then, but the good thing was that someone on the panel really, really liked me. So when they heard I wasn't going to take that job, they came in my DMs immediately. I was like, hey, we hear you're not taking this, but guess what? There's one right there in your state. It's not quite this role, but it's still in sales. You might like it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, fine, I'll try it. And that's how I ended up here.
Wow. That is such a powerful
Yeah,
story with a lot of lessons.
that's an incredible
Dang.
journey.
Thank you. Thank you. And for me, I really like it because initially I was thinking, these people are offering me something sales. Even though I was saying I wanted to lean more, let me just stay in the safe bucket of like being closer to the technology. But, you know, I've learned so much because what I realized with my career is I've basically gone through the path of what it takes for a company to be profitable, right? So I've gone from being in the kitchen where we cook the sausages to being in the front where we sell the sausages. So I've gone from being on the engineering team, you know, how we put the products together, how we, troubleshoot, make sure people are using it well, and pass through the, customer success to sales.
Yeah.
So it's like, think about what the core, duties of a company are. It's really not more than that. Create technology, sell that technology, manage the customer to ensure that they don't leave. That's why I'm really excited about the path that my career has taken. Even though these roles initially felt like, why aren't you just trying to be like principal this? For me,
right? That's a good point.
Through the company in this way, I think has exposed me to so much more about how the whole system works. And so it even helped me do my job better as a salesperson because I know where the gaps are in engineering. I know where the customer success account managers fall short. So in the end, it just helps me be better. This is
a master class on how to really build a career, how to tailor a career.
Yeah.
Because you made a very good point. You could have been principal and then senior principal, like
that's in
You talked about the fact that literally you've been escalation engineer, right? Know the back end, and now you are working, you're selling and then building that relationship with the customer. So you've literally gone through the DNA of the system. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm telling you, like it's like the tech life, in this tech life, like the design.
I know, right?
It's incredible because going from hands-on to support installation to now being in front, it's just the perfect story, and it takes being intentional too. I think that helps.
What is the intentional?
Yeah, you kind of had goals coming in, so it was when the opportunities presented themselves to you, you knew which one was right for where the right direction to go.
And let's just stay on goals a little bit. Like I usually recommend, right? Like I know sometimes people are trying to find a job. It's like whatever comes my way, I want to get it. Whatever comes, I don't care. I don't care what it is. And sometimes like any work is really not work. You can get into a space. It can be burnt out. It can be toxic, and you really think that a space is not for you. But what just really happened? You didn't ask the right questions during interview.
Yeah, you're just in the wrong role. It's not you. It's not the company. You're just in the wrong.
I would say even if people are really trying to get into the space, get into tech, trying to get a job, still have an idea of exactly what your goals are, or
what you want to do, what you're good at, right? Because for me, and that's why I'm glad that I made that journey because. Like I said, I already knew I didn't want to be in the core tech role, right? So when I was an escalation engineer, the truth is I was not happy. I could do the job. I did the job well, but I was not happy. But like you said, like I was so early in my career that I was not thinking career, to be quite honest. I was just thinking job.
Also, yeah.
So I was just like, let me just get a job and let me just get in, right? So I wasn't thinking career, but like sometimes you have to like get through the hard part to really get smart, right? But after I did that, and I did that role for about 4 to 5 years, and that's when I realized like I really have to be thinking about the bigger picture. And so when I moved into the technical account manager role, like it wasn't just, okay, I'm just going to live here and like jump into something. I had to take a step back and really think like, what do I want to do? And so I think for a lot of people, it's okay to not know immediately like what you want for your career, but at some point you have to be thinking about it. So maybe in the first few years you don't know and you're not thinking about that. And you're like, I just want to jump. That's fine. But at some point, actually put some thought into it, and then you might realize, like, you know what? I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that. I should be trying to move along these lines because once I left there and I moved into like the technical account manager role, I found that, my job was using my best skills. So it was less strain on my person, less strain on my body, less strain on my mind, because sometimes you can do a lot, but like maybe that's not your area of strength, right? So once I moved over, I was now leaning more into my strengths, and it just took that stress off of me. I mean, it was still work that I had to do, but I was enjoying it better than before.
Well, finding a job where you can use more of your strengths because you create less strain on your person. Wow.
Right.
All right, let's talk about the opportunities in tech sales, right? So, I mean, are there opportunities? Where do we find these opportunities?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure we all know, right, that like, post-pandemic, the tech world is experiencing a whole lot right now. So
A
like,
whole lot. Yep.
there's been a lot of layoffs, and lots of people are just.
But you know what? Sorry to hold that. What I mean, one place though that it shouldn't be layoffs, it should be sales though.
Yeah.
Because that's where the revenue is coming in from. But keep
Right.
going.
And the funny thing is, in my company, they did layoffs as well. And I know one of the things, like, so when my manager was trying to like talk to us, because I mean, everybody was like, listen, what's going on? What should we do? Like,
I know, right?
he's like, oh, well, we don't expect that we're gonna get hit because we're sales, and our business is actually the money maker of the company right now. So we're like, we're gonna be fine. Right. We actually still got hit, but not at the level as like different part of the orgs. So like some orgs lost like half their teams. Some orgs, the entire job like got shut down. But our org was like, okay, maybe like one person in a team of like 10, 12 people type of thing. Obviously, it's still not good if one person gets hit, but it was not as bad as the rest of the company. So yeah, I think, being in the sales role is kind of like a safe place to be, because regardless of what's going on, people still have to sell what they are producing.
That's
so
true. That's true.
So when you ask about different sales or tech roles, so what I realized is that there are so many like sales adjacent roles that people are not aware of. But if sales is a little daunting, you could start out in those places, right? So for me, who came into sales, what I did not realize at the time was that my passage through the customer success account manager role was going to be helpful in sales, because even though I wasn't necessarily selling products or licenses, I was selling support. Because as a customer success account manager, part of what helps a customer be successful is support. Yes, we try to build the best products and we want to say that they're the best thing you will ever see. But the reality is sometimes the products will break. Sometimes there are bugs. Sometimes customers don't know what they are doing and they break their environment, right? So when you then sell products to a customer, you want to make sure that they have a proper enough support package that can attend to what they need. So part of my job as a customer success account manager was ensuring that my clients had the right sized support package. And that meant that each year my quota was actually increasing, because more than likely customers are buying more licenses. So maybe this year a customer is just buying the basic support package. Maybe by next year, their company has grown in size. Maybe they've rolled out more regions in their business. Maybe they're now taking on like bigger undertakings for their company. And unlike before, where they could afford to be down for like an hour before an engineer would get to them, and maybe they can't afford that now. And like when something is done, an engineer has to be there right away. Part of my job was knowing that and right sizing their support. So maybe a customer spends this amount of support this year, and I'm like, okay, we've been working together this entire year, and I noticed that each time something broke, you guys would say it's supposed to be like a Sev C, but in reality, you guys treated this as a Sev A. I think you guys need to be on the right package. So let's think about doing that. Or, it's like, okay, I noticed that over the year, you guys hired a lot more people into the IT org, and some of these people are not familiar with the technology that you use. We need to build in some trainings into your support package this year so that we're more proactive, and then you can get your people up to speed. So those kinds of things, were part of what I did, as a account manager. So it kind of translated into sales because I sold support. So now, tech adjacent or sales adjacent roles. Number one, the customer success account manager role. I think people are not very aware of it because that name is even so long that I'm sure people will scroll past it, if they saw it. But that's an excellent role. That's an excellent role if you're still a little nervous about getting into sales. The beauty about it is that your commission part of your pay is so minuscule that if you missed it, you wouldn't lose sleep. It might be so small that like you'd be able to survive, so that's there. So that's the customer success account manager role. There are other roles such as like a sales engineer. So if you are more technical, that would fit you, because now, if you were in core sales, like if you were, the sales specialist like I am, it means that you're the one who's sitting and having those conversations with maybe the CTO or the CIO or the VP. And those are really senior seasoned people. They know their tech from the front to the back. And, you know, when you sit and you talk to them, you have to have some kind of executive presence to convey your points and, you know, speak to them at that level of their career. They're so seasoned that like, you can't just be like not knowing what you're doing. So some people want to be in sales, but they don't have that experience. They don't know like how to sit in front of like those kind of leaders and speak to them on a business level. They get stuck in the weeds where they're talking the tech. A job like a sales engineer would be great because it allows them ease into the sales world while still keeping their edge in the technical space. And then if they want to dip more into the sales world, they can begin to learn. Because as a sales engineer, you will be working with the salespeople. So you get to watch how they work. You get to see what's important to them, what they're, you know, metricked on and things like that. Because that's part of how I decided the role I was going to take after that role as a customer success account manager, is because I was working with the sales team. So I was watching them. I'm like, okay, I see what you guys are doing. And I think I'm going to do it. So the sales engineer role is one to keep an eye out for. Another role that's sales in the sales world, but you know, doesn't push you right smack in the front of sales, is the solution architect role. So if you are technically inclined as well, like I said, that's an excellent role for you. You know, you get to work in the sales capacity, you get to be commissioned, but you are allowed to stay in your safe space, which is the, you know, the technical part of things. Now there's some other more like sales, you know, like hardcore sales roles, but I think it's excellent for someone who's trying to make that jump into sales, but has no sales experience, or rather no tech experience. There's a role called the account executive role. Some other companies might call it the account manager role, but think about the account executive as a CEO of a portfolio. So the account executive's job to ensure that that entire portfolio is profitable. And by that, it means that you're hitting your quota. That's it. So even if you don't have that tech sales, tech experience, you would have some kind of experience in that domain, in that space. So you really know what these leaders are thinking about. So even if you don't really know the tech, it's fine. Why? Because guess what? You have your technical sales specialist on the team. You have your solution architect on the team. You have the sales engineer, but you just come in from your insurance job, not knowing anything about the cloud technology, but you know so much about the insurance space that you assemble your team and you're like, okay, this is what they think of. This is how they think. We need to get them off this into that. What do we have internally that can serve this purpose? And then they do that. So as an account executive, that is core sales without like demanding that technical depth from you. So I think it's excellent for people who have like a sales, you know, experience, domain expertise, but you know, they're still afraid of tech, get into the account executive role. There are a few others. There's the technology strategist, you know, there's so many other roles. There's like who you would call like a licensing executive. You know, so these are people who figure out how to build the licenses in a way that the company still makes money, but then we still give the customer some kind of discount. Okay, then we put the contract together so that the customer does not back out of it before the end of their term, like all of that stuff. So there are so many different roles in the sales org that don't have to be core sales. You just have to keep an eye out for it and just really do that research. Because from one company to another, the names may be different, but some names you find. The account executive, the sales lead,
solutions architect,
engineer, the solution architect, the technical account manager, technical account manager, customer success account manager, customer success manager, those kinds of roles, technical specialist, right? Like those kinds of roles, you know, you want to pay attention to them because they're all in the sales org. And they're like a good stepping stone to moving into core sales if you do that.
Those are like a lot of options now to get into tech. And honestly, I don't think a lot of people are aware of this information.
I don't think so.
They're not like these are like you just mentioned like quite like more than five.
My
more than five ways to get in, right? And even what I'm hearing, like it's not necessarily like you said, it's not core tech. Some of them are core. You need that technical expertise, but people can literally leverage what they've done before and come in here. Literally, right? You know, sharing their, you know, their experience or where they've leveraged some of the competencies in a different environment. And you're just literally moving competence from one environment to another environment and you're able to communicate that. I mean, this is literally wonderful.
You touched on important point, because what I found is that people don't really know how to communicate their value, either because they don't know what that value is, or they just don't know how to communicate it, right? So earlier I was telling you about my career journey, and explained, how I see what I do or the value that I provide, but many people don't see it that way, right? So they try to go for an interview and they're asking them about themselves, and they're like, 2 years ago I did this, and then I did that in that job, I did this, and then I did that, but they're not selling a story. So that interview today, and I'm talking about my career journey, like with all humility, like the hiring manager or whoever is interviewing me is like, okay, because they're hearing the story about the value I provide. No, here's what I did, here's the job I did before. It's like, okay, this person really understands the ins and outs of the company, but it's really about, being aware of like what your competencies are and telling that story properly for the kind of job that you're applying to.
Well, one thing I know for sure is that we have to bring Emi back with some passion. What it is, but we'll let you know.
Because there's so much. There's so much more to dive into, to really explore. There's so many questions. Just one last listen, and then before we wrap it up, just like that, I really want to talk about this one. In terms of your personal development versus the person trying to come in, right? What are you focused on more now from where you are? Are you focused more on the developing yourself as a sales person, or, keeping up with the cloud technologies and being sharp in that area? How is that for you? And also for the person who doesn't want to spend 14 years and wants to get in, where should they
start from?
Yeah, where should they, I want to invest in myself so I can get to this, where should that investment be?
Good question.
Right. Okay. So I've shared like what I consider to be the 3 areas that make for a great salesperson, right? Tech, sales, domain, right? So what you have to do is think through which of these you already have and which of these you need to build. And that's it. So coming into sales, it was like, well, I had the tech, I had some of the sales, but what I didn't have was the domain. Because I knew nothing about financial services, literally nothing. Ask me about financial services, I just know that there are banks. Banks. I know that there's Wall Street. I know people buy shares. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I was not like literate about that space at all. So for domain knowledge, just consider that I was 0.
Okay.
But like I said, I was able to present my, value, like as far as my background and my knowledge in tech and sales. And many hiring managers realize that if you're looking for someone who has all 3, you're actually looking for a unicorn. So you need to find someone who has 2 of them and is smart, or at least teachable enough to learn whatever they don't know. So for me, coming into it, knowing that, okay, I knew some of the tech, I knew some of the sales, but I didn't know the domain, that was it, man. Like, I had to get on there and start getting this publications, Financial Times. I was on YouTube, literally researching, because my clients are in the capital markets. I said, what is capital markets? So I had to do that. I had to get in there, like, just try to know what people are saying. Like, okay, how does this work? And I'll be honest with you, there are things that you may not fully grasp even when you do that, but you have to just remain in a position where you're willing to keep learning and asking questions. Some of the people that I work with on my team, when I started the job, it was kind of daunting. I was the youngest person. I was the only female. I was the only one that looks like me. And a lot of these people were older, men who were not looking like me. And a lot of them had so much experience in this space. So you're talking to someone on your team, we both report to the same manager, but this person is like, oh yeah, back when I was a CIO for about 10 years, you know what I'm saying? And you're like, oh. Like, okay, so these are people who knew so much, but at some point you realize, like, you know what, I don't know what you know.
Right.
So it's best for me to just put myself in a position to learn from you. So I surrounded myself with mentors within my team, outside of my team, people who I could go to, and you have to be wise about that, right? So there are questions I'd ask within my team. There are questions I take outside of my team. Like, I needed that person who I could ask the most stupid questions. Like, plain stupid. And they're like, here's your answer, no judgment. So that's just what it's been for me. It's just continuing to grow and learn in this space because the technology is constantly moving. The technology as support, we're constantly churning out new features, new versions, new products, new solutions. So I have to stay on top of it. I have to keep learning. I have to keep my ear out for the news, right? Because I need to know what's going on in the capital market space, right? So once the news came out about the recession, we know what time it was, right? So a lot of your customers are going to be very focused on cost management.
Yeah.
So, so it's things like that. You just, you just have to have a mindset to continue to learn and grow. And that's it. One thing I realized is the sales part, I didn't even realize, but you learn that as you go. You learn that as you go. Hopefully you don't learn it by, putting a bad deal together. You learn that as you go. That's it. There are books you'd read, but you may not really get that whole, it's a dance, right? Sometimes it takes you a year to sell something. Sometimes it takes you a couple of years to sell something. So you just have to stay teachable.
Persistent.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that. I do my best to listen into other people who know this more than me. I make sure to find materials on, the free internet, that I can leverage. And then my company also has these trainings, that you can partake in. But, like you asked, for me, what's key? For me, honestly, I'm really thinking what's next for me? Because I've been in this role over 2 years. Right. So I'm thinking, what's next for me? Do I really want to stay here and build here for a long term? Or do I want to start thinking about the next thing? So that's where I am. But for someone who's coming in here, I'd say just figure out which two of those pillars you know really well and tell your story properly, representing yourself in those areas. But as much as possible, research the domain before you get in. Sometimes the sales role will play in a domain, but sometimes it's even a region, literally a geographical region. So some companies don't even require you to have that domain knowledge. They need you to just know how to sell and know the technology we're selling. So you don't even need that domain knowledge. So that's it, just figure out which of those three, pillars that you have, and the one you don't have that you need, just learn it well. And once you get in there, continue to learn.
Continue to grow.
That's it.
Surround yourself with the right persons. Okay.
Yeah, I'm done talking. So I guess I can keep going. This has been really.
It's been insightful for sure. I mean, so many people are going to get so many nuggets, especially the different ways to come in.
Yeah.
So just going right in, there are ways you can, the different, I just said tech sales roles. All right. So as we're coming towards the end, I think I have one more question. So I said you don't have any more question. Okay. So what advice would you just offer individuals who are aspiring to, come into the tech sales role? What I know you talked about continuous learning, have a story, understand your beliefs and all of that great stuff. But what advice would you give to someone who's watching this right now and say, what, the tech sales role now is for me. I'm sold in, I'm bought in, I've started. What would you say?
I'd say that first of all, don't count yourself out. Because when I got into the space, I realized that the reason there were not too many people who looked like me is because most people just count themselves out because they think I can't do it. Oh, I'm going to miss my quota and I'm going to be hungry. All of that. Don't count yourself out and don't let fear dictate what you do. You're better off trying it and then it didn't work and you're like, okay, great. I'm not, into sales. Don't count yourself out. On the other side, I'd say if you can find a mentor in that space. If you can, it can be tough, especially if maybe you don't even have any connection point into the tech world. But, it's very interesting that you might find people on LinkedIn who do want to help you. There are a couple of people who I do not know. I've never met physically, but we connected on LinkedIn because they sent me a message and I'm like, sure, let's talk. And, I could tell from their profile that they were serious people. So I'm like, okay, sure. Here's my number. Let's keep the conversation going. So, just try, do your best, reach out. As much as possible, if you know where people are being trained, just go and learn. Don't think you're going to figure this whole thing out on YouTube by yourself. If you can, get trained. Because the benefit of getting trained by people who have spent time in that space is they're not just telling you things. These days, we have to be careful because there's a whole era of coaches.
Yeah, everybody's a coach.
I'm telling you, they've never worked a day in the space they're coaching people for. So as much as possible, find places where you can get trained. somebody who can teach you what the nuance is with sales and things like that, and maybe even give you some of that exposure to maybe some kind of, simulated, use
Yeah.
right, like just give you that environment to like use your mind and like think through those things. But I think that that'd be it. A lot of the times you can't really know what's going to be in that space till you get in there. That's why the first thing I said was do not count yourself out. You get in there and you be like, what did I get myself into? And that's okay, that's fine. Now you realize that you're in it. It's sink or swim.
Yep.
Start paddling really fast. Start swimming. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much. And we're going to definitely put your LinkedIn somewhere in this video. And if anyone reaches out to her, you better mention Tech Chat, mention Stella Nnamdi if you want.
Yes, you should. I think it helps to do that. And not to, because like I said, a lot of people might reach out to you, and then some people are not really serious. Some people just, just like, oh, I hear there's money in tech, so that, put me notes. So if you say you're from Tech Chat, then I know you're serious.
Absolutely. So you heard her say that, right? Okay, cool.
That means you watched an hour.
That means you watched, it was this whole hour of content. So kudos to you. The values at the end, which is her LinkedIn. So so kudos to you for watching to the end. Yep.
That's incredible. Amy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you this is so insightful for us.
Yeah.
I can imagine what it would mean to the people who get to see this. And thank you. And like Stella said, there'll be more. We're bringing you back. Just know, don't send us a fat invoice for the next one.
I'll try.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, we really appreciate you. On behalf of all of the Tech Chat crew, we say thank you for being our first expert guests, and now we're pumped. Like we're
absolutely pumped.
I can't wait to see where this goes. But it's really
and I also want to say kudos to you as well.
Yes,
because being multiple, triple minority in different form and fashion, paving the way, being very intentional about your career growth, being very strategic. Kudos to you. You're definitely a trailblazer, right?
Thank you so much.
I'm excited that I look up to you as well and be inspired. So.
Yeah, thank you. I'm truly humbled that you would say that, and I want to say that again. Like, for people who look like us, do not count yourself out. Like, I had no idea until I got into that space that's where it literally happens. Like that's, so I know for people like us, we're like focused on trying to, make something for ourselves. We're focused on trying to, build wealth and things like that. Listen, you better keep your ear open for those fields, that you probably didn't think of. I know majority of people think like, oh, if you're going to make money, you have to maybe go be a nurse or this and that. And don't get me wrong, those are good fields, but just know that there are many other options out there. So be open to explore them and stretch yourself to learn something new. You never know.
You just summarized the whole essence of this expert part of it. Because I mean, like I said, Tech Chat every Friday, we talk about career, tech, different things. But the expert portion of our every Friday chat is to bring people in different fields. So to let people know that there are other options out there that you should consider. So you just literally summarized that again. So thank you so much for your time. This is fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. Can't wait to hear the next level you get to. We know you're going to do great. You're still going to do greater things. So
see you at the 6th level, right?
Yeah, we can't wait to hear it.
And thank you to everybody who's watched so far. I hope this has been super insightful. I'm sure it has been. And put in the comments, what you've learned, something that stood out to you, or your action items. We'd love to read that as well. And share the video with others as well. So till next time, just stay amazing.
What she said.
Bye, everyone.